Okay, so earlier this week, I was doing a training and I was talking about the Sandra Bland story relative to her family's inability to get bail. And I was thinking about you, because this is definitely a part of your origin story. And so would love to kind of explore that a little bit more. Why is that so important?
So, it kind of goes, so let me give a little backstory on why that works from that standpoint. So my mom's family is the most arrested civil rights family noted by the NAACP in 1965, which means that they kind of got into some stuff. Good trouble.
Good trouble. We like good trouble.
So, as John Lewis would say, good trouble. So that was sort of the legacy behind that standpoint. And so there were a lot of people in the movement who were doing that type of work. And there were people on the backside who were also giving money to get them out of jail so that they can go back and do it again, right? Get into more good trouble. My mom's family was definitely one of those.
They had the bail money.
They had the bail money, right? Like I said,
everybody needs to have some money.
The bail money because they were, we was poor. They was poor. It was 14 of them, so it wasn't, it wasn't like my grandparents could go get them money out. They had family and they had other stuff. They had other kids who didn't go to jail at that time, but so they couldn't do it themselves. So what basically happened was they were able to sort of move the country forward through the civil rights movement, because those people in the background that you don't necessarily see were able to continue to have these children at that point to be able to continue to do that. Well, the challenge is that I was born in 1965 as well. So I was sort of like that same kind of at the end of that period of time. And so as my mom was finishing up her journey of
before she became a parent,
to get trouble. And my mom's name is Sandra. So for me, Sandra Bland was really one of those situations where it was like, wow, literally if someone had not been there to be able to help my mom get into some good trouble and get her out and then move forward from that standpoint as well, then I literally wouldn't be here, because Sandra Bland is no longer here because of a whole nother thing, but she didn't get out. She didn't, those 3 days, the time she spent in there because her family didn't have the funds to be able to do that, her life ended. And so my mom's life was just beginning in that standpoint. And so the ironic piece is that it was 50 years later, right? 2015. Wow. So it was 2015. And so it was kind of one of those situations where it was like, there's got to be a better way. Like there's got to be, and that just struck me. And, I know that, our situation as African Americans is different financially than everyone else, but across the US, the numbers are staggering. 60 to 70% of people don't have $500 for an emergency. And that emergency cost her life. And so giving back really was something that started way before. I'm a child of the AME church. So we have several offerings. Right. We do all the things, right? All the things.
Church fund, building fund,
missionary fund.
Right. Just because fund.
Building fund. We always got to do the building fund, right? So we were always giving. So that wasn't like my first piece. That was more of like just a legacy, but really understanding how, like sometimes the money that we give in church, sometimes we don't always see where it goes. But I could see, when Sandra Bland happened and I was able to sort of reflect on that, I was like, there was someone behind the scenes who was giving money to be able to get them out of jail and to continue this process of, now that we have, the Civil Rights Act was passed and all the different things that happened, Dr. King had people get him out, that type of thing. So like those people behind the scenes don't get a lot of recognition, but they were super important to be able. So that's sort of how my story, it wasn't my beginning of giving, but it was sort of when I really understood the power of philanthropy and how that piece, giving with intentionality really, really could, in lack of a better word, save someone's life. And so that was sort of for me. And I know you have a really interesting story too of how you sort of began this journey and how this process kind of started for you. And what you want to do with that.
Well, talking about church, mine probably are 2 layers of the church story. So one being that young person in church where your auntie gives you a dime or a quarter, and so you can walk down the aisle and put it in and do your benevolence to one of those funds.
Right.
the multiple FUDs we have throughout the day, where we're trying to figure out, at what point is the building going to be done? But as a young person, that felt good to be able to contribute, because that's just a part of who, what you need to feel like you're a part of a community. I want to contribute. The other part of the church story, though, is that I'm a Girl Scout. I'm a lifetime member of Girl Scouts. I've been in Girl Scouts now over 30 years. And I've gone through most every level of being a Girl Scout, which I love. It's such a huge part of my leadership story and leadership journey and my philanthropy story. And when I think about the troop that I ended up staying with the longest, the largest Black-led troop in Nashville, really probably in the state in terms of size. And I think about the women who poured into us. Many of them didn't even have children of their own, but every single Saturday they were with us. And they really showed what it meant to give to your community at every level. Whether that was because they had a child of their own and they wanted to make sure that their child was there, or they literally, one of my troop leaders literally would go to one of the communities and pick up her little sister from Big Brothers Big Sisters, and bring her, and we would all just be together and having a great time. And so that's how I believe, learned what philanthropy was. And then also, as I go back and think, you were mentioning 14 aunts and uncles that siblings of your mom, and I think about my great grandparents and their children, which was about 12 or so, my grandfather's siblings. And I think about the land that my great grandfather left, the many acres in West Tennessee that was left so that his family could continue his legacy of growing on that land and doing something with that land. And I think when we think about philanthropy, and you and I talk about this all the time, we're often looking at what the name on the side of the building, or some big, large, explicit way in which philanthropy works. But it's also, as you mentioned, those opportunities behind the scenes, feeding your family, growing your community. Even thinking about the area in West Tennessee where my family originates from. And it used to be that there was a kind of a shanty town of folks who were living in tents, trying to make their life better. And the community leaders would say, don't feed them, don't help them. And I learned that my family was contributing to them, making sure they had access to food. Those types of things are the legacy of Black philanthropy, right? And so love and generosity and trust and hope, that's the core essence of Black philanthropy. And so much of our lives, whether we're saying it or not, has been about how we give to our community in ways that really supports them, not just for today, but like cement something for a lifetime, which is what you're talking about with your Sandra story and what you're talking about, even with the church story. It cements something for us over and over and over again. We always can go back to that story and feel good about it.
I think it's, so I know you and I both travel a lot. We were just really having conversations about where we're going off next to in the world. And I think, I don't know where that is. I don't know if it's a genetic thing that happens with us. But one of the things I do, I've had the opportunity to go to the continent several times. And I know that you've been to the continent as well. And I think what people need to understand is that this is something that's ingrained in us. It's sort of innate.
Absolutely.
It's not a, I don't know that, we brought this here to this country from that standpoint. Being in Kenya, Harambee is a way of life. We talk about Ubuntu across the country. I am because we are because I am. I think the whole conversation around that is something that we are, and I don't think that we embrace that in the same way, right? It's a part of who we are, and we do it all the time, so we don't give it as much value. So I think Black philanthropy gets lost because people kind of go, oh, it has to be money. And it doesn't always have to. It's like passing on information. We talk about the 5 T's, right? Time, talent, truth, testimony, and treasure, and then the money, right? So, but all the different things that kind of go with that. I think, traveling for, I think both of us reaffirms the fact that we are people who are givers, and as Black philanthropists to
Absolutely.
embrace what that means in this culture, to be able to say, hey, you know, we have the resources in one of those 5 T's, or maybe maybe to expand that out. So I think that's something that's super important that people really, you know, I think we spend a lot of time trying to talk about, you know, all the interviews that we have, we talk about how people have been able to give some intangible ways.
Absolutely.
Not necessarily always the tangible building on the name on the side of the building, although we are moving towards that part of like the power that we have. And, you know, we have people who are doing those types of things. And that's important because you can't be what you don't see. Right. And so some of that legacy behind why Black philanthropy is so important is for us to understand it's always been there. You know, it's one of those things where it's like the thing that you're looking for, you've always had. You've always had. And so for people to, like, you know, Black folks like, well, I'm not, like, you are. It is ingrained in your DNA. It is part of the African diaspora. You know, no matter where you go, where there's Black folks or people of the diaspora, there is that community piece that goes along with that. And so Black philanthropy, us, you know, blackgivingback.com, when we talk about the stories that are there, we talk about all the different things that we do in particular. So I think that's really something for people to really embrace. And I know that the work that we're doing is really trying to make sure people see themselves as philanthropists, because there's a power position. One of our guests, I know, and I can't remember her name right now, but I'll let you guys go back and look and see all of the videos, first of all.
Look at, we've done some great conversations.
Go back and look at all the videos, so just do that. But one of them in particular, she was like, you know, giving back is a power position.
Absolutely.
Because it says that you have something to give. The work that we're doing is really trying to make sure people see themselves as philanthropists. Because there's a power position. One of our guests, I know, and I can't remember her name right now, but I'll let you guys go back and look and see all of the videos, first of all.
Look at, we've done some great conversations.
Go back and look at all the videos, so just do that. But one of them in particular, she was like, you know, giving back is a power position.
Absolutely.
Because it says that you have something to give. And it's that sense of, you know, having abundance and not scarcity, right? You know, so much of what our experience is explained to in the media is about scarcity, like what we don't have. And giving back is a power position of like, I have enough to be able to give.
Absolutely.
And it gives not only you, but the person that you're giving to, sort of like, I can see someone who looks like me who can give, and one day I can be that person, but also being able to see yourself that way. So I think that's a huge piece. I mean, there's so many of the videos people have really left a lot of really good information there, but just kind of working with, you know, with that in particular. So
no, I mean, one of the things that I am so adamant about in the work that we do, and you've already punctuated this, but is making sure that people understand we are philanthropists. You get access to this word. It is not something that, it's a birthright. It's not something that you've had to even earn. You deserve the ability to say that just because you were born, because it is something internal to you. As Dr. Tyrone McKinley mentioned, he wrote the book about Madam C.J. Walker and her philanthropic endeavors as an entrepreneur. He said, we brought philanthropy over through the transatlantic slave passage. This was something that couldn't be stripped from us in that atrocious kidnapping from the continent of Africa. And so that, I mean, it's that deep to us when we talk about it. And interestingly, you and I both were having these interests in 2 different ways and then came together. And because people ask me like, how long have y'all known each other? And we've known each other since about 2019 because we came together for a community foundation event, Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee event around Black philanthropy during Black Philanthropy Month. And really both were doing other work in philanthropy, and in particular making sure that I think for you, financial freedom was happening within the community. And similarly, I was a part of the 260 Change Fund that had a similar kind of mission around how do we support our community. And we came together, and this has, blossomed into something that is really become national. People, asking us questions about, why is this so important? Why is this so critical? It's critical because if you look at 3/4 of households, right, $11 billion of money comes out a year comes out of households, right? And we're just talking about money. And as you mentioned, those 5 T's, part of our traveling is bringing back the testimony and bringing back the truth of our ancestral legacy. So that's what traveling gives us, right? The ability to come back and share that narrative. And then time, when you think about it, we can always make more money, right? You can Uber Eats, you can sell on Etsy or what other platforms. You cannot duplicate time. You never get it back. We know how fleeting it is based on your origin story, right? Just those 3 days, what those 3 days did, as Sandra Bland sat in that cell and was unable to come out. 3 days is such a small amount of time, but such a massive impact of time. And so we're always giving. We call it volunteerism. We call it mentoring. We call it just being in relationship with each other, but we're always giving. And so as we came together to really co-create, co-design, co-conspire, and launch this work with Give Black, Give Back, it has really been a deeply spiritual relationship. Because we always joke about how we even show up similarly dressed or in coordination. Yes, in coordination in some way, and we don't even always talk about it. We just show up. But it's deeply spiritual work, and that is the same way that I feel about Black philanthropy. It's deeply spiritual work.
I think you touched on a couple different things in particular, and I think one of the things that we want to sort of. You had the 260 fund, we had the Change We Seek fund that my family, sort of initiated, my husband and my 2 adult children. We have that fund here at the Community Foundation. And so Give Black, Give Back was sort of one of those things where we really just kind of was like, what are we doing to help other Black philanthropists? Because we're out here on the island and we're thinking we're the only ones. We know we're not, but we're not be able to be in communion with those who also have access to funds when we're talking about treasures specifically. Absolutely. And so, it's fate would have it, or as God would allow it, the pandemic happened soon after. We met like in August, and then the pandemic sort of happened, but it actually created an opportunity for us to sort of expand our world a little bit bigger than we even thought from that standpoint. And then somehow people went, I like the work that you're doing. And they were like, we need to give you money. And we're like, wait, that wasn't the point. Like,
because it wasn't a fund.
That wasn't the point. That wasn't the point.
Initiative. Right, absolutely.
It was like just having this conversation. We had this whole conversation around empowering the voices or amplifying the voices of Black philanthropists. And that was sort of our initial piece. And then people were like, hey, let's give you some money. And we were like, okay.
We were adjusting to the need that was presented, but it certainly didn't start that way.
No, that was not the intent at all. And I think people, there are some, obviously people were like, oh, how did you guys raise the money? And how she was like, we didn't, we just would start doing the work. And I think that's so many times what happens, right? You start doing the work and then people go, hey, this is something that I really want to be involved in, and how do I get involved? And so the community sort of jumped in. And so, the Black Giving Back Fund, or the Give Black, Give Back Fund now is housed here at the Community Foundation that people can participate in and give money to say, hey, I don't know what, but we also understand the need to, because in addition to your point, about the $11 billion that we give every year, we also found out that of all the money that's usually given at these big grants and those types of things, that only less than 1%, 1 to 3% at most, and that's being very generous, actually ends up with Black-led funds. And so what we were finding was that some of the changes that we seeked, weren't happening because the money wasn't actually coming to the Black-led funds who were actually doing the work. And so it was being filtered through multiple different organizations. And so as the tiers happened, Black-led funds got 1 to 3% at the funds, and people start, wait, what? Like, we're like, so then, Give Black, Give Back was like, okay, this is a fund that is Black-led. And then we're making sure that the funds get directly to the Black-led community leaders in the area to actually make those changes. We've done a couple talks and we talked about people like, well, what's the difference between charity and philanthropy? And how do how does that work? And so, we like to think of it as from the standpoint, charity is helping someone in their situation, that situation, that immediate need, that, those things needs to happen from that standpoint. But philanthropy is literally getting them out of that situation, like really structuring and intentional giving to where we move someone to the next plane. It's important to help them in their moment of need, but that is charity. But how do we move them to where they have an elevated access to funds, resources, people, the mentoring pieces, all those different pieces. That's really more about philanthropy. That's really structuring and changing the community and that person's thought process, and not just that feed them for a day situation. It's more of a, that piece, and I always, I've said this a million times, but, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, he talks about at some point we got to stop just pulling people from the river. We need to go upstream and figure out why they keep falling in, or to your point, who pushed them in.
Yes, because the system works that way.
Yes.
I mean, right? The system that we operate in is to keep some in a position of wealth and then others in a position of poverty. And in particular, those who are, though only less than 1% comes to Black-led organizations, those who they're supporting, all organizations are supporting, for the most part, are Black and brown individuals. And what we've really aimed to do is change the narrative of only being recipients.
Yes.
It's nothing wrong with being a recipient. We have needs, varieties of us have needs, and also we contribute as well, and we work towards liberating ourselves. And so particularly when you have racialized communities, we work hard to make sure that our community is well. And so we've always done that. So we're also saying to the other communities, you also should take a look at what it is that we're doing. You also should want to contribute to what we're doing. So this is not just Black-led organizations, only Black people. This is everyone can give to this initiative and this fund, and really find how it supports the greater community.
Yes.
Right? So we're not just siloing ourselves into a corner. This really is to say, when you support this community, the one that is 212 years behind the racial wealth gap because of systemic racism and systems of oppression, when we make that claim or get excited or interested in saying, let's close that gap, everybody benefits.
Everybody benefits.
This is not just, one community benefiting.
No.
This is that our children have a better place to be in relationship with other people, because now they have some equal footing or better footing to operate in. And so that's what we've really been championing throughout this time, in addition to supporting the Black-led funds at the Community Foundation, and supporting those organizations that are in the Giving Matters profile process. It's really also about having the bigger conversation around how do we really close that racial wealth gap. And this is not blaming anyone, because no one alive today necessarily got us here, but there are those of us today who are benefiting from how we've gotten here. And so we have to then make some changes in that way.
I think the thing is that what people need to remember is, when people have asked us, is this fund only for Black folks to give to? The conversation is really around, if you're really looking for, if you're serious about equity, right? I lean heavy into equity. When you talk to DEI, I lean heavy into equity. Are the current things that you're doing, are they equitably giving to different demographics? And if you don't have that information, I can tell you that information, and 1 to 3% is coming to Black-led funds. And so if the intentionality is there from an equity, so for corporate sponsors or for anyone who's giving, to say, I don't know that my money that I'm giving away for philanthropic endeavors because I feel need to, whether or not it's religion or it's just a culture of your family. I want to tell you that money is not getting to certain groups of people. And so the intentionality behind Give Back is to say, no, I'm going to not give money to an organization that has historically only given 1 to 3% to a Black-led fund, or funds that would be able to make the difference. That I'm going to give it to Give Back, because I understand that they have been marginalized in those ways. And when we give to these big organizations, that's only trickling down. So you're not making a difference. And to your point, I think, historically we can show you multiple different cases where Black folks, when they excel, everyone wins. Everyone wins. So it's not like a situation where you have to be like, well, that's gonna, we're givers. It is what we do. So it doesn't matter that when we give, everyone wins. And so benefits. I think that's what we kind of want to make sure people understand. It's like, it is for everyone to participate in and to enjoy the bounty that will come from that when these nonprofits are able to flourish in our community, and that flourishing goes outside of the community. So the entire community is better. And that and it's a mind shift from I'm going to give to an organization and hope that it get to the right people.
Right.
This is an opportunity for organizations, individuals to be able to say, I'm going to give, and I know
where it's
these
going.
people are going to feet on the ground, go get it done. And so if we're intentional about equity, then Give Black, Give Back has been a great resource to be able to do that.
Okay.
What
we're really working towards is for organizations to not just be reactive, but this is really a proactive opportunity.
It is.
Because when we have disaster, I mean, and Nashville has not been, we've not been able to avoid the things that have been happening. We have, sometimes it's been, it feels like a mountain of things just rolling onto us. And that's great when we have people who can support and react to those in real time. I mean, we know that because we're right here at the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee, where they respond so quickly. And what we're saying is, how do we know that another thing is going to come because it's a cyclical world we live in. And how do we create some proactive opportunities? How do we support folks before disaster strikes? How do we give them the tools, resources, and opportunities before that so that they then can begin to liberate themselves? When folks ask me, what can I do? What's the best thing I can do when I want to support and give money? One, give the money, and then give the money, and then also step back and allow those identity-based organizations, i.e. Black-led organizations run by Black folks, to support the Black community. Let them do the work that they need to do, because they can hear the best, they have the most trust, and they can then really lead the conversation alongside of the community much better than an outside actor. So it's great, give the money, but then don't dictate what is happening within the community. And that's the way to also be proactive in this conversation too. And so I know you and I've been really pushing for that. The other thing I would say, because you made this point, and I really want to punctuate this, which is that when you support people, those individuals I have found also get right back in line as a philanthropist. And so they may be a recipient on one end, and then because they've been supported, they then realize the value of that. So we're really creating a stronger economy, a stronger world for everyone, because it is just a cyclical relationship. So it's not just that we're contributing to one person and they're getting in line again for being the recipient. If we give them the tools that they need, so the tool and the resource, and access to do something with it, then they also get in line as a philanthropist. And then we just have grown the landscape of all the wonderful folks who are contributing and being generous and being loving and being benevolent in some way.
I do think that's important for people to sort of see that, once you give and you get that sort of, you get so much more back when you give, right? And I think we understand that. And I think that's innately what people want to do. It is not, again, going back to the charity versus philanthropy, right? This is really about moving someone to the next level so that they do have the resources to be able to give in another way, whether or not it's their time. Maybe somebody goes from working 3 jobs to be able to get the training, from a philanthropist to get training to get another job, and so they're able to make more money. So they have to spend less time. Maybe they don't have more. Maybe they have a lot more money with it, but they have more time now. So then now they can give back in that way. So I think the thing is understanding when we're talking about charity versus philanthropy, to your point, when disasters happen, we need charity. We need those very immediate pieces. But what we're talking about is really changing the dynamic and changing lives, changing and leaving a legacy. As we kind of close out, what do you want the legacy to be of philanthropy, Black philanthropy in your family moving forward?
Well, something that you always say, if they go back and watch those videos, they will see this, but something that you say is about, legacy is about how you live and not just what you leave. And so certainly I want to create wealth opportunities for me and Teddy, the 8-year-old, so that he has access to real estate and land and businesses and all the abundance of the world that he wants, that he so desires, as he talks about this private jet that we apparently have, and all this traveling that he does, which and he does. And so of course I want those things, but also it is that I want to walk in a way that he can see how that manifested. So not just that I've left it for him, but that he actually can see what it looks like. Recently, you and I won the Mary Catherine Strobel Volunteer Award for group volunteer. And the children of Mrs. Strobel got on the stage, and the son was talking, and I was so overwhelmed by him speaking, because he talked about his mother in this beautiful way about how she always was giving. And, you know, one of the things when you have little children, whether they're your biological children or they're just around you, sometimes they're a little grim. And so Teddy, he would say, you know, Mommy, when you pass away, I need to go too. And I say, Teddy, you have to stay. And he said, no, because we just need to be together. I say, no, Teddy, you stay and tell people what I did. And when he was on stage, when Mrs. Strobel's son was on stage talking about that, it reminded me of that conversation. So my hope is to live in a way where Teddy can stand on that stage with the Give Black, Give Back Award at some point, where we're supporting, you know, philanthropists for all the work that they're doing. And he can get on stage, joined by your children or your grandchildren, and talk about the legacy that we lived and not just what we left.
That's so awesome. Thank you for sort of sharing that. I think that's a beautiful story. I don't know that I can add any more to that.
And that's okay. That's okay. I didn't even know where it was going to go, but but that's really what I feel about this work that we're doing. It's so much greater than like the Lisa and Kia show. I mean, Give Black, Give Back is like, it is our children's.
It is. It's our children's. It is about leaving that legacy of having them own it, right? To be able to see themselves in a position of being able to give back and to be able to help other people, and to know that the impact that we made goes on for generations. Right. It's beyond, you know, we all have ancestors. You know, I think our culture specifically, we talk about our ancestors a lot as though they're in the room, because they are, right? Because they are in the room, and we want them to be proud of us, and we want to make them proud. And so we want the same thing for, you know, moving forward for us as well. And so Give Black, Give Back has really been an opportunity, a blessing, an honor, a privilege to be able to say that this is something that we've started from that standpoint. And we, you know, are constantly bringing on people to say, you know, you are part of this already. And for people to really just embrace the fact that I can be a philanthropist. There's a story, we've heard multiple stories, but stories of people who don't, like Black folks who don't know what being a philanthropist is all about. And for us to really embrace that and have that. And I think if that's the legacy that we are living, then that will be the legacy we leave.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. It's been great. This has been awesome. I think it's just, you know, being able to tell why we do this work and the passion behind it has really been a great opportunity that has been a long time coming.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you know, this work is so important because the why carries us. You know, we were in a pandemic. We could have totally said we are disconnecting from everything and all of our initiatives. And instead, we totally leaned in, because the why, what we're living and what we're leaving, is so much greater than just us.
It is.
And you're right. We do carry those ancestors into those rooms. And we do acknowledge and honor them. And so I know we were on the way out, but as you think about an ancestor, who do you want to call on that has contributed to the spirit of this work?
There are so many. I think, you know, I would have to go to, I think you mentioned something earlier. So our family also has land in West Tennessee as well. So Papa Dennis made that commitment to us in 1906 to have that land. That land still exists in a large part, the way that it left it. And I think that was something that, you know, when I get a chance to go see the land, you feel him there. Like you understand that this is what I wanted for you. And this is what, you know, cattle on 1,000 hills are all yours to claim, right? So that sort of that moment happens where you realize that this was left for you. And I think, you know, Papa Dennis for sure you know, as a Black man in 1906 to even figure out how to do this, right? And so that was, you know, when you get overwhelmed and you start to think, okay, maybe this is too big or whatever. And I go, you know, there's a lot of Black folks who don't have 96 acres today.
Yeah. Our family has about 80 plus. I mean, that's amazing.
So today, right? So for us to have had that land for that period of time, I think that his intentionality, right? I think going back to that's the way he lived. And so that is the legacy that he has. And so to follow that example, you know, my grandmother took up the, you know, the mantle, you know, once he transitioned, and all of her siblings as well, obviously continuing on. But I definitely would say that he made the legacy. And then even going back even further, we have done some research, and we believe to be that our first ancestor on this land was Grandma Mandy. And I think I always, you know, I can never forget, you know, there's a line from Daughters of the Dust, Julie Dash. It's a film, and if you guys haven't read it or watched it, you should watch it. We are the children of those who chose to survive. And so to really understand that when it gets rough and you start thinking about what all we have to go through, what all we're dealing with right now, remembering that we are the children of those who chose to survive. You know, the transatlantic slave trade, all the different things that happened from that time through to Jim Crow through today.
Absolutely.
We chose, someone chose to survive to make it possible for me to be here today. And so I can never forget that. I will never forget their contribution. And so when the work gets hard, you go back. You remember that.
Yeah, that's the why. I would bring into this conversation, like you said, there are many names, so I'm just gonna give last names. But the ancestors of the Jarman family, the Mason family, the Walker family, the Woods family, the Johnson family, and the Durrell family. Those are my great and great grandparents. And it's important that I honor their legacy by doing this work. And so many of our family members, and I know your family members too, comment on our posts and are so grateful to this work. And it is because of those contributions of, you know, Grandma Mandy. I love that. I love that you found that information. And others who have chosen. And we choose to be philanthropists. And I hope that those people who watch the work we do, I hope they choose to be philanthropists too, because it's already available to them.
It's just as, you know, you don't know what you have to get until you sort of realize that that's even a possibility. And just to think beyond, you know, there's always this quote of we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. I think we are. And we will, and we have to be the same. And we have an obligation to continue on that legacy. I think that's a huge piece of, you know, whether or not it's Papa Dennis and the Williams, or my father's side, the Swift side, or the Richardsons from that standpoint, on my father's side as well. Lee's, Williams, all the people, all the names. You know, I have again had a chance to go back to the continent, and I will say that. As an East African from that standpoint, I feel like even back to them, you know, even back to the people who are brothers and sisters and aunties and uncles and all of those people that we don't know.
That's right.
I want to say thank you to them as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, bring those names in. One gift that people can give themselves is the ancestry DNA test, because then they can get clearer about their origin.
I would suggest another way too. I think you need to go.
Well, yes, I think people should go.
I think you. So here's the thing. I will say. I think absolutely. So this is the thing I will say. Absolutely. I have not had mine done.
Yeah.
But I have been to Ethiopia, Tanzania, and Kenya.
Yes.
And each time I have been.
They
mistaken.
know you. They know you.
They know me.
They know
me.
Yeah.
And so even though I've been to other places in the world, it has been very. And I'm if 3 different countries are very clear on you belong. This is who you. This is where you're supposed to be. Yeah. You know, I got my. We just came back from Kenya, and I got my Karibuni Nimbani, so welcome home. And that was what I was waiting on when I got back, because I had been to other countries that hadn't quite got it yet. Yeah. But they were like, no, welcome home.
Yeah, I got that in Cairo as well. Yes. They were like, cousin, welcome back. and it felt really good. And so both ends.
Yes.
Do both.
Do both.
Do both.
But travel, but go, but go.
Get the test, because what it does do is give you language.
Yes.
That you do belong somewhere besides just here.
Yes.
And that's really important.
There was a before.
So if you don't know that,
yes.
that you belong somewhere else besides here, that test helps you. And then when you go to other places and they welcome you back. You also know you belong there too.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I'm definitely a part of the Igbo tribe in Nigeria. And so really excited to learn more about that and to continue to travel the continent. We're headed to South Africa very soon and can't wait to experience that relationship with my people there too. So with that, we gotta go.
We gotta. I think I think this has been a great opportunity for us to sort of, because here's the thing, you always have to go back to your why. And I think this will be even something that we'll go back to be like,
over and over again.
The moments where you feeling like, is this really worth it? It's like, no, this is the why, and going back to the why and being able to do that. So I'm really grateful to have you as a partner from that standpoint in this space of what we're doing and what the Creator has decided for us to do, as God has allowed us to do from that standpoint. So I'm grateful and thankful and blessed to be in this space. And I hope that all of those who are looking for that light that you have right now, I think you can find it as working with us at Give Black, Give Back, and you will be fed that way as well.
Absolutely.
So, all right.
Very good.